Yeah. It's a UVM Dell even. Oh no. I'm like making fun of the computer they get me.
Yeah, because they definitely watch your morning meetings.
Well, Tony did watch one once before he
Yeah.
came in, and it was like one where I was spicy.
And he was like, what were you doing?
No, he was like, it was like good content.
Oh, it was good good spicy.
It was related to what he was talking about.
All right.
I'll be back on last water treatments for trees.
Dave's.
Or
Just as I get it, ready to go.
How's everyone doing?
Good. All right, thank you, Cameron, for being there, full turnout.
yes, I think that is this our first time with everybody?
No.
Maybe one other time.
Eric's online.
Eric's online. Morning, Eric.
Still more most full been in the room.
Good morning.
The crisp air.
Crisp air, frosty car.
Yeah. The
And
bike
you-
ears are still like,
I couldn't
Red and
pull out
cold.
of my driveway to do it. It's like 3 minutes.
Oh, geez.
and then here's still messing.
Fully frosted. Which is interesting because it only read as 38. Didn't actually read below freezing.
Yeah.
It was. Something about friend's cars. All right. Let's start. Any members of the public or public comments that members of the commission would like to start with? Hearing none. All good. We'll move on to the minutes from our last week. And Dave, if you wouldn't mind pulling those up on the screen, that would be helpful.
Right, so these are the minutes from September 17th.
Okay. Any comments or edits to the minutes this week? Nice and short, getting to the point. As always, appreciate
Yeah.
that, Dave.
Looks good to me.
Like, my only question was, Laura, did you have a chance were you gonna connect with the historical society?
I sent to the Williston Historical Society, Aaron Merrill, yeah,
Oh, Aaron Merrill, great.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll move approval of the minutes as drafted.
Start now.
All right, great. All in favor of approving the minutes?
I
Hey, excellent. Oh, looks like everyone was in attendance last week, too.
Yeah.
Good deal. All right, moving along. Next on the agenda is several high impact updates from Dave.
Very quick thing before we move on from minutes is just a question about conventions. When I took this over, putting together minutes, I noticed that the convention was to use honoraries and last names, Mr. Westman, whatever, when referring to things that people said. Over time, I
Transition.
just noticed that I switched to using first names.
Eric and I would like to be referred to as doctor.
As it, well, yeah, I think it
Yeah. and only doctor. That's it.
took the
No first
guesswork
name.
out of not necessarily knowing what someone's preferred
Pronoun.
prefix would be there. So I just wanted to double check if that convention, if you prefer full names or if first name, last letters, or any preferences there, it doesn't matter.
I think it was AI that was doing that, wasn't it?
Oh.
Yeah,
They started doing the last name.
Yeah,
yeah.
That's interesting. Could be.
There was also a time where it was less using specific names. If it was just discussion, we would just say a commissioner raised that blah blah blah. But I think
Would that be preferred to fully depersonalize?
no, I think
No,
it should.
yeah.
It's helpful to know who raised
Okay.
what. I mean,
right, the
Yeah.
first and last name, the first time it's used, and then first name.
I have done that some too. I haven't been fully consistent.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
also
yeah.
the all caps in the motions. I actually
Yeah.
kind of like that because when I'm reading, I can see the all caps and I know it's a spot where it mentions a person doing something during the meeting.
Yeah.
So, anyway, but I have no complaints with what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I have like a strong opinion. I
Yeah.
feel like when I write grants, I write people's last names.
Okay.
Like I would be like, the first time it would be like Dr. Meyer, and then
Yeah.
afterwards I'm like, Meyer will supervise. And then
It's
like,
like a scientific
yeah,
way of you doing scientific writing.
but I don't feel like, I think I just do that because I learned to do it.
Mhm. Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure. I thought about using full names every time that I didn't know if everyone wanted every thought that it was attributed to you to be searchable by your first name online. Um,
Well, and I think using judgment, right? I mean, if it matters who said it,
yeah,
then if it's like something of significance, if it was like there was a discussion about, what national park signs look like, it doesn't matter
Yeah.
who said I think they're square. It's
Okay.
like, so,
all right,
yeah.
sounds good. I just want to check and see.
I like I think the searchable aspect of it is fun. It's like.
What did I say during the meeting?
AW.
That's fine.
Yeah, okay, great. All right, so we're gonna jump into updates. We're gonna keep pretty tight because we have CSWD folks coming in at 7:45. And we have Alicia Daniel joining us at 8:30 for Vermont Master Naturalist discussion. So I'll try to run through. I've got a bunch of updates here, and feel free to, of course, interject as always if you have questions. But I'm trying to move through the topics pretty quick because there's a bunch of things. Okay, so first, a couple small things. The sign mockup. Let me stop this share. And share. There we go. So as requested, some edits were made. The font was changed to be a little more handwriting-y.
Is it Comic Sans?
That was the suggestion that I made directly from your suggestions. I don't know if it is specifically, but I said, more like actual handwriting, for example.
Yeah.
Comic Sans. So if you recognize that as Comic Sans, that would make sense.
It looks nice and rustic and
Yep.
legible.
Space was made specifically for the bolts, so they wouldn't cover up any text, and then the second ones were shrunk.
It's also easier to read with those bolts
Yeah.
separating the different things.
So I said yes to that. That's going to print, and we have another sign done in the previous way in the back, so we'll be able to kind of compare direct when we get it. That'll be a good learning experience, and we can kind of see how it comes out.
I think I mentioned a couple meetings ago that the sign coming up from Five Tree Hillside to the overlook,
Yes.
when you get to the final little green, whatever field before the top, that sign is down, and so that's another sign that could be made out of material.
Yeah, thank you. So WVPD is going to be taking care of some of that stuff for us, and I think some of the smaller signs they may just directly hand route for us if it's quick, if it's a little directional. But some of these bigger signs with a lot of text will probably.
Yeah, I think it says like private land, stay on trail, and has an arrow or something.
Okay.
Yeah, just for crossing that field,
Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
just before the top.
Yeah. When you like come right
Yeah,
out of
right now you come to the field, there's no signage, and if there was some snow, you might not even know where the
Right.
trail is.
Yeah, or even early in the spring.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely a bunch of signs to replace, so we'll continue that conversation soon, and I think it'll be good to discuss what exactly we want to be kind of the standard for text. So we'll move on from that for now.
Also curious how the plastic material will
Right,
look and hold up and.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Welcome, Greg and Josh. Just wanted to note that we're going to jump in right at 7:45 to the CSWD HDA addendum review. So you're welcome to hang in the background or come back at 7:45 if you like. All right, next update is I mentioned last time the new pollinator garden was put in out front the restrooms at Village Community Park. That was put in by Sue Basilier, helped organized by Deborah Michio of Sustainable Williston. Conservation Commission not directly involved per se, but supporting these initiatives from behind the scenes. Todd is putting together a sign that will list all of the various organizations that are involved. Does the Conservation Commission want to be named in that kind of as a proxy for planning and zoning department, or just as institution that's sort of involved?
Is the sign by the Gardens by the restroom or the other pollinator?
Gardens by the
garden?
restroom.
Okay,
Oh,
the other pollinator garden is larger.
The other pollinator garden is larger, and yeah, I have some small lawn signs there. Those do name the Conservation Commission currently. But this is going to be slightly different. It'll be more of a larger permanent sign. And it may have, it'll say, gardens created by, gardens designed by, give a bunch of credits, the kids who painted the rain barrels, and it may also
look really
list the
nice.
plants that are involved in the garden. So
great.
I'm fine with Conservation Commission being named.
Yeah.
We were consulted even though we didn't
yeah,
go and install the plants.
Supported by a
Yeah.
conservation, I don't know.
yeah, okay, great.
And if the sign doesn't have space and they wanna cut us,
Yeah, there you go.
Right, yeah, if
We're
they're like,
happy to be listed, but not,
we won't be
not,
upset if we're not.
we won't be upset if we're
That's
not.
right, that's fine.
Yeah.
Great.
Sometimes it's helpful not to have to put everything under the sun on a sign.
Mhm.
I just did this on like a product for a master's student. I was like, I actually did nothing on that. You don't have to have my name.
I support you,
But I made no meaningful contributions. I
Mhm.
appreciate you trying to give me credit, but I did nothing.
Okay. So next update, we have a management plan update coming up for Mud Pond Country Park that's slated for 2026.
I feel like we just did
I
this.
know.
we did conservation
You did the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
like 2024, early 2025.
I had a walk last week or the week before with Fellowship the Wheel, which was great to meet Adam and Eric who were involved with that. And it ended up being just about the right time to kind of start the conversations around this. So I'm going to try to get Adam scheduled to come and have a check-in with the commission and kind of start talking about what might go into that. They would like to make some of these trails two-way. So that's a conversation that we can have. And
Does that mean just say, like, making them like the signage different? It doesn't mean actually.
yeah, I mean, it largely just means changing the signage and
Mhm.
visitor education.
I think in
Um,
practice, it will mean. If people start using it two-way, there will be times that people are like making the trail wider
Yeah.
just by usage, so.
They have some justifications and reasons for that, which I'll let them explain at a later time. We have a little more time. But I also I think it would be great to potentially schedule a fall site visit. To go out there and maybe walk the trails or a trail and start to look at it. So we can queue up some of those conversations over the winter. So just wanted to put that on your radar. I know you've done site visits in the past. In the past, have you replaced a meeting with the site visit, or has it been something you've tried to schedule in separately?
I do think we went there in replacement of a meeting with Melinda to look at the parking
We did.
situation. But it was a
Um,
lot. Go ahead, Eric.
Sorry, Kim. Yeah, we did. I think we've done a few actual meetings there. One, we did as you were saying, can we walk? We did a meeting there to look at the parking lot and that trail
Right, can I-
upgrade. But then there was another meeting, I think back when we, may have been back when the last time we did the plan here, we actually walked the trails of the country park as
With
another
Mickey,
meeting.
previous.
Yes.
Real
Yep,
person.
that's
Oh,
right.
wow.
Yep.
That was.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is there a preference? Did that seem to work? Would you like to do that again?
It's
Or-
gonna start getting cold.
Yeah,
I haven't actually seen
And dark.
and dark. I haven't seen a meeting replaced with an on-site visit at the same hour. Like it would make sense to me that if we go to my pond that would probably go in the afternoon.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And
Given this
if
time.
we still want to replace a morning meeting, say with something that doesn't have any permit or review, would make the most sense to me.
Okay,
There are also 5 Wednesdays in October, so we go like 3 weeks without meeting.
right. Okay, I'll think on that more. Maybe it's sounding to me like maybe it'd be worth trying to schedule something outside of the regular hours anyways, and not necessarily trying to replace a meeting.
Yeah, we do get fewer attendance in the
Yeah,
off-hour meetings,
Right,
but
okay.
given the fact that it's dark and frosty at 7 o'clock right now.
Yeah.
And even if everybody can't go, like if it gets scheduled for an afternoon and everybody, half of us can go, we can take photographs.
Yeah.
And that way, if there's any talking points or
Okay.
points of discussion, we can look at those.
That sounds good. I think the only question in my mind is simply that if it's a full quorum, we have to warn it separately. So
I think we'd want to warn it anyway,
for the public meeting.
just in case.
Right, but if it was replacing a meeting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um,
Slip it at the regular flow.
That makes sense.
It's not a big deal either way, but okay, that makes sense. So that's something to think about. It. I'll send out an email. Maybe we'll try to do some scheduling about that. Okay. So next thing, this is just a small thing to put on your radar. The Association of Vermont Conservation Commissions has their annual Tiny Grants program. It's going to start accepting applications November 2025. And awards are up to $800. So this is a program they run for the last, I want to say 5 or 6 years, awarding between $400 and $800 or so for different kinds of small projects to towns, town conservation commissions. And I've seen pollinator garden installations, trail work, signage, educational campaigns, different kinds of cool projects that have been funded by this. So I wanted to put that on your radar. I don't think Williston is currently a member of the Association of Vermont Conservation Commissions. So that is something that it requires a small dues payment. And you do have to be a member to be eligible to this grant, but something to think about. I wanted to put that on your radar since this is an opportunity that is coming up starting in November.
As a practical matter, I don't recall projects of that cost ever sort of being a financial burden for us. We seem to be at least well enough funded that if we had a project that was between $500 to $1,000, that we could generally find a way to make it happen. I think that's generally the case.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I feel like this program's actually been going for a long time now, longer than 6 or 8 years. But anyway, I agree. I think that in the past we have chosen to not participate in this for exactly that reason, and to allow other communities that don't have the same resources that we have available to participate in this type of a program. I do wonder why we're not a part of the
Yeah, that's what I was feeling like, we should be paying into it.
Yeah.
We should.
Yeah, larger towns need to be paying in, so everybody.
Yeah.
Dave, can you tell us how much the dues are for that?
I don't think it's large. They stay here,
I think we did used to be members because I'm on their email list.
Me too.
And
I
I
agree.
feel like the only reason that we would have been added is like
It may have just fallen off during transitions with
Yeah.
staff over the last few years, so.
okay. Yeah, maybe there'll be information here under join. I don't want to take time on this because we have a lot of things,
That's
but
fine.
I'll look into that. That argument makes a lot of sense. Obviously, the history of how of funding being available better than I do. So that makes a lot of sense. And I'll look into joining.
The only
levels of membership, $50 per commission. So it's not.
Oh, yeah.
So we should just join as a matter of course. Then.
Agreed.
But I would just say that if our taking of a tiny grant to do a project like a pollinator garden somewhere like helps raise the visibility of this association, or if it creates like a larger value proposition, Sometimes these small grant projects, they're just happy to get the money out, you know, regardless. They don't always oversubscribe.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, they do have, I'll just say what they have this success stories archive here, which is a really great way of communicating kind of the projects that happen, and you can submit a story regardless of whether you get a grant. All the grant projects get logged in this database, but that's another way to sort of contribute to the value that's created.
I almost wonder if interpretive signs on the nature trail or like around the beaver pond or something like that would be a perfect application of this after the bridge is fixed, of course.
Yeah.
But something like that could sort of give them something for their website, raise some visibility that, you know, around the association, and then it lets us put something like that on the sign itself to sort of raise awareness.
Okay.
What's the deadline?
I'm not sure. They start accepting applications in November, and I think it goes
So
through
it's
the
rolling.
winter.
All the money's done.
Yeah, so it's not urgent.
The only topic that I think we should talk about this more on is invasives removal, because we may be wanting to make a larger ask next year for invasives, basically trail maintenance that involves removing invasives, and we may end up feeling like we could use a grant to supplement what we're able to get into the budget. So.
Okay, so food for, sorry. Good point. All right, great. Food for thought on this. I will join on behalf of the commission.
Thank you.
And next topic, okay.
Yeah,
So-
and let's just be clear that if they ask for our email addresses, it sounds like some of them are already in the database, but like, I don't get those emails. I don't have a problem.
It's not a lot. They're
Yeah.
very,
As long as it's my Gmail, not my work email. I get enough crap
Yeah.
on my work email.
Yeah, you can join the listserv independently. There is interesting stuff that comes through there.
Great.
Eric, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I had something else I wanted to mention when you're done with the AVIC thing.
Yeah, go
Go
ahead.
ahead, Eric.
Okay, thanks. So I took a walk with my kids through the Mud Pond Conservation Area Boardwalk for the first time in a while over the weekend, and I'm not sure if any of you have been through there, but that boardwalk is not long for this world, but there's a couple of parts to it that really could use some shoring up if we're not going to condemn it immediately. So I just want to bring that maybe to a future agenda when we have more time to talk about it, but put that on everyone's radar.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Eric. I also took a walk out there this summer, and that boardwalk is a wonder to behold.
Well, now I gotta go see it.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, and it is pretty precarious at the moment.
Wait, was that a VYCC?
It was VYCC in
And
maybe 2014 or 2015.
No.
yeah, I think we looked at it more recently and we
Yeah.
decided not to invest funds in it at that time or
Because
something.
it was $1 million.
Because it was gonna be a huge expense, yeah.
Yep.
So I
Yep,
think we
there-
looked at it to do anything recently.
Fixing it
Yeah.
may require a grant.
It would, yeah.
Taking a bit of time.
So there's two parts that I was looking at. There's the really long boardwalk, which I think is the $1 million-ish repair. But then there's also the shorter boardwalk or catwalk or whatever that goes out to the overlook to the pond, to Mud Pond. That is actually in rough shape too, but that's a much smaller boardwalk. And I think for at least the short term could be repaired pretty easily. It's just one section that as you're looking at the pond, the left side, the stanchion rotted out or broke or something. So the things like this, so you can, do a balancing act and walk out to the pond. But that I would think, could be repaired at least for the short term for a few $100. But the longer boardwalk is there's one section that's in a similar condition or headed that way. That will be a bigger problem.
Yeah.
Eric, how's the pond? Given the drought.
I thought it'd be a lot lower than it was. It was still there. I thought it'd be more mud than pond, but it looks good.
Great.
Good.
Is it a kennel pond?
It is.
And okay, so yeah, thanks, Eric. I think we should, we'll definitely carve out some time to talk about some of these bigger trail projects
Pardon?
soon. Okay, so we've got 15 more minutes before CSWD, so I want to get through a couple other updates. Definitely a lot to talk about this week. So I was asked about a parcel that is posted up for sale. I think Dave brought this one up. 189 Shagbark Lane, which is a large parcel over 100 acres that's intersects with a lot of our conservation, high priority conservation areas, including natural communities, unique natural area.
That's the Grammar Ridge.
Right, exactly.
Oh, boy.
Directly below Fog Tree Hill.
Also, we did something up there. Maybe pre-COVID on an adjacent parcel where the bigger, there's a cute little house that's also nice, the bigger house is, and there's like a very cool stand of shagbark hickory trees that I don't know.
Yeah, both Kim and Gary were drooling quite a bit when we got up there.
Yeah, that's cool. Where was that?
There are like two houses on.
Over here on this side.
Right at the
Yeah.
top of Shagbark Lane.
Yeah, it's,
They're
Okay,
like-
yeah,
Yeah.
is that uphill from this parcel? I'm trying to remember the topography here.
That's a little valley there.
I think it's an adjacent parcel.
Okay. All right, so yeah, I mean, this is a pretty important area. It's unique topography, unique communities in terms of Williston.
Yes, that was my point. There may be other
Yeah,
neat stands.
right, and uncommon communities in terms of the state distribution, as well as an uncommon species record, and there's also vernal pools in this area.
Oh,
So the question was, with this parcel being on sale,
A cool 2 mil.
is there any conservation potential or opportunity? What would it look like if this area were to develop further? So I did a little research into this parcel, and I did discover that this is a site that has a permit already approved, that was approved 10 or so years ago, before our current bylaw.
Permit for what?
A permit for development. So this is, I'll share.
That's probably why the price tag is higher.
Yeah. I think
It
it's
is not, it's not what would be considered the ideal for conservation today. This is what was pretty common in the past, is put in a very long driveway,
Oh dear.
put in a site. So this is the area that is approved. It's about a 3,000-foot long driveway, and there's a half-acre building envelope right up on the ridge. So I just wanted to put that on your radar, so that the opportunity for conservation is not perhaps as great as it might potentially seem. Obviously, this is a very expensive parcel, but that permit has been essentially runs with the land since its approval however many years ago, and doesn't expire since work has been done already to develop this driveway.
It even says
and
in the
prepare the site.
listing, a rare oak, shagbark, hickory, hawthorn beam forest creates a park-like setting where one can see a long distance through the woods.
Yeah. So it's from a
I think they
conservation.
got that from you, Kim. It sounds like your words
Yeah, it does.
from our tour.
Yeah, it's unfortunate from a conservation perspective. What is helpful to note is that this, if you see this faint dotted line here, the left side, about 50 acres of this is conserved land by a private deed restriction that was put on the land by the previous owner when it was sold.
Okay.
So that is helpful to know, because that doesn't necessarily show up in all land conservation databases, I don't think, and
Are we able to add that to our mapping?
it actually is on
Polygon.
one of our maps.
Okay.
Yeah. So some of the more important resources are protected by that here, but
It's on the eastern, it's like the eastern half of that parcel.
Yeah.
basically.
it's just worth noting, right? This envelope would not be approved today under the current bylaws, given its location and its overlap with the significant natural areas. It basically is, oops. Yeah, it's basically right here in this little chunk of the natural area. Okay, so just wanted to communicate that information, that information has been in our files, and that's what was referred to on the listing there as the development permit. All right, two other quick things, and then we see about 9 minutes for this. I think we'll just kind of get to the end, and we'll jump into CSWD. So the first is a conversation from last time continued. So I did go out and take a quick look at this site with Mike Gravelin, the landowner who lives right up here. And Mike is very interested in deeding this parcel to the town. So I think that conversation is something that there should be serious thought about for the Conservation Commission about whether accepting this 2-acre wetland is something that would make sense for the town. Could be justified by the protections that the town might be able to accomplish by through ownership for the wetland, for flood mitigation, for wildlife coexistence, and balancing that with noting that the town would then take over some of these responsibilities with regards to managing wildlife coexistence there. So I don't want to have that conversation right now because we don't have time. But I want to note that I think this is something that should be seriously considered. And I would recommend, this is another site where I think it would be really good to have some eyes on the ground. So this is something, it could be another group site visit, or it's also might be the kind of thing where folks could take a look.
Come on.
If you're interested to take a look
tours
on your own. It's very visible from Lefebvre Lane.
Sorry if I missed it.
When I was coming here this morning, I called Ben and I was like, "Hey, FYI, the beavers took another tree down and it's in the road." So like,
Yeah,
they're
Sorry.
Yeah.
they're being spicy.
They're being a little tricky, aren't they?
Yeah, they're being beavers.
So it's okay for us to go out and walk on that private parcel.
I'll just tell.
If you're interested to actually go, put on boots or waders
Right.
and go walk there, then I just want to contact Mike.
Okay.
You don't need to though. It's like
You can walk along the
beavers are
side.
they're
Yeah.
here.
Okay, so you can
You
walk
can-
along and look.
You can, if you stand on the road and look, they'll start slapping their tails.
Oh, that's
I
really
could also
fun.
probably go to the back of the parking lot of the church there and see the other side. of
Yeah,
things
that's true.
a bit.
But I'm sure Mike would be happy to provide permission. So if you were interested in
Okay.
going out there, I can just give him a call. I'm sure he'll be happy to provide permission. Anything that advances this conversation, you'd be a proponent of.
I would be very interested to see a sort of the beginning of a documentation of both the risks and the opportunities by taking deed to the land.
Mhm.
I think, the proximity to the school makes it potentially interesting as like a learning opportunity, but we also have that with the existing nature trail today. But obviously there's a lot of risk.
It's basically a swamp. I mean, I'm not sure that I think we could do a flood mitigation project there, maybe.
Like
but
plantings and
Maybe.
I would like to see some documentation of like
mm,
why would the town be interested in this as from a conservation perspective? Versus like, no, you're just offloading all of the risk onto the town, which doesn't seem great either.
Sure, I can try to put together some resources.
That would be helpful. And then I think a site visit could be better informed by like, okay, what are we actually like looking for here? Other than like, yep, there's beavers here.
Yes. And yep, sure.
I think I'd say a counter argument to that, and just that's all it is counter argument, is that it could be in the interest of the town if it's protecting town infrastructure or other homes downstream.
Right, like if we, that's what I mean, I feel like the value is like if we think holistically about flood mitigation.
Which we're not really set up to do yet. Like who's thinking about flood mitigation?
Well, we have flow restoration plan in place that the Department of Public Works does for Allen Brook, which should include some flood mitigation in it. I haven't looked at that plan in ages. But
Yeah, the plan from my memory is much more industrial and not so like combinations of natural and industrial approaches. So that's what like the holistic piece to me is not quite there.
And Eric, I guess that's kind of my point, is that if this creates an opportunity for flood mitigation, then great. But I kind of want to start documenting that through a memo of some sorts, sort of recommending what this site could be useful for. If it is not particularly useful for flood mitigation, then we would want to know that before we took receivership of it, I guess.
Yep, that's fair.
Yeah.
I did ask some neighbors, our neighborhood had a garden, this is so silly, we had a garden party. And I asked
That's not silly. That's what
only in Lefebvre Lane.
It was lovely. And I asked people who were there, and I said that I would like send something out to collect broader feedback, but I think in general, people were like, we would feel better if it was like, we would feel like our road was more secure.
So the town would not be interested in taking ownership of, right now, the Lefebvre Lane has a easement over this little strip of
Right.
land. So the town, if this land were to go to the town, the wetland parcel would go to the town, and that little strip of road would probably end up going directly to Lefebvre Lane.
That little strip of land is already ours.
Yeah.
It's
So-
full ownership, not just right away.
Yes.
Okay.
And so
Yeah.
right now, like people feel like, okay, well, the road, which it's a private road and we just paid to pave and are responsible for maintaining, is at risk. And this other person is like the sole person who can do something about, right? Like his decision making could cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? And so people were like, it would feel better if it was the town, because you could come to the town and be like, your decision making is gonna cost us, and that's like seems like an easier conversation than negotiating with one neighbor who may or may not.
That's perspective of the community
Of
right
the
now.
community, yeah.
All right.
The one person who was like, I don't like that, felt, and they weren't like, I don't like that, actually, they were going back and forth, but they were like, the only reason that he got permission to build that ADU is because this acreage was included in his application, and that feels icky to me that he would use that acreage to get this ADU and then be like, I was like, well, I don't think that's a good reason. Like, that's done.
That's
Yeah, it's
interesting.
done.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know if it's necessarily directly pertinent to the question at hand.
I think it speaks to the fact that maybe the neighborhood and the decision maker are not like
On the same page, yeah.
There's like some misalignment.
So the neighborhood was originally all that owner's land, and then
He bought it like he bought it. My parents were gonna buy it, actually. He bought it kind of out from under my parents. Which like just for the record, like that happened, right? The neighborhood has been there since the 80s, and he built that
That's more recent.
during COVID.
Oh, so it's very new.
Yeah. It used to be part of this parcel. And
They
then
subdivided it
they subdivided it,
and
and
got a driveway easement from the HOA.
it had already, the easement had predated, like the easement was from the 80s.
That makes more sense.
Okay, so
Yeah,
I'm
we
gonna
need to-
just pause that conversation there. I just wanted to keep the conversation going on that, and note that I think, a site visit at some point would be helpful. And if anyone is interested in going out there, just to let me know so I can get in touch with Mike. Kim, thanks for sharing that perspective of
Yeah,
the
and I can like
community.
get formal if we want it for the Yeah.
Okay, great. So we're gonna move on in just a second. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., I'm gonna be meeting Reed Parker at Catamount to help Reed move a duck box. Anyone happens to be available at 9 a.m. wants to help, let me know.
Which day is
I
that?
wish I was available for that.
Tomorrow,
Tomorrow.
Thursday, tomorrow
Okay.
night at the second, quarter second. And last thing is that we're just kind of running out of time is I want to Chapin McKenor sent me some notes about volunteering and the challenges with not having approval to use herbicide to work on invasive species this year, and thoughts about how we can, as a town and community, adapt and improve strategies for working on invasive species townwide. So I want Reed had also put that conversation on our radar last time. And so I wanted to make sure that that conversation gets bumped up for a future meeting, maybe next time if possible, to talk about town invasive species management strategy, the different components involved, and the way that's intersected with some of the challenges with revamping the town's volunteer policies and all of that. So that's the last thing to put on your radar. I know it's a lot of updates to cruise through, but thanks for staying with me to keep that relatively tight.
Do you want to add something, Reed?
I just want to add one thing, which is, in case everybody wasn't aware, Japanese knotweed was found behind the fire station along the Allen Brook, a couple weeks ago. And so when we talk about invasives management, there are some things that are maybe more time sensitive, because I think we all have seen, places like in Stowe along the bike path where you can't even see the river anymore because it's all knotweed 8-10 feet tall. So there's some places like that Chapin was going to be trying to come up with a plan for what to do about that. Now we will have to find another source to address. Sorry, Eric.
That's okay. We're out of time, so my question is not all that pertinent.
Yep. At a later date, we'll.
Yeah, sorry to be a little brief on many of these things, but I wanted to let you know there's a lot of topics to be aware of right now, and we'll definitely be carving out time to have more in-depth conversations on each of these. Okay, so with that, we have Josh and Greg and Kaylee waiting in the wings from CSWD. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. And we have about 45 minutes allotted to take a look at the HDA addendum that was put together by Airwood and the reconfigured site plan that was put together by Greg and Krebs and Lansing on behalf of CSWD. So let's get oriented here. I see Josh and Greg are with us. Thank you so much. Kaylee, I don't know if you're there, if you can hear us all right.
So how do you want to start this, Dave? We've got an updated site plan, we've got an updated habitat disturbance assessment, and then we have an updated town memo. Where's the best place to start with sort of the overview of where we're at?
I think I can provide a concise overview of the way that the reconfigured site plan intersects with the town bylaws by walking us through the memo and looking back at the HDA addendum as needed. But first, I think it'd be a great place to start just by welcoming Greg and Josh. And Greg or Josh, if you'd like to say anything to start, I think that'd be a good way to start.
All right.
Just give you an opportunity for the floor if you'd like.
I don't have too much to say. I mean, we took a look at the HDA and comments from this board last time around, and also went in front of the DRB who had similar concerns, and we quickly mobilized to kind of try to address those and fit into kind of more aligned with the original HDA, and feel we have done our best effort to do so. The building itself really hasn't changed at all. It kind of just rotated almost, I think, like 90 degrees but the site kind of changed completely, which allowed us to save some time on redesign of the actual building. So it was mostly just the civil side that was redesigned. But I've gone through, myself and the team have gone through both of these documents, and would be happy to sort of abide by the recommendations and stuff like that. But I'm also here to answer any questions or talk through anything else the board has to discuss.
Great. All right, thanks, Greg. So yeah, I'll walk us through a quick overview, and we can take a look at the revised site plan as well. So I updated the Conservation Commission staff report memo as it relates to the reconfigured site plan. So broad strokes is as Greg mentioned, the building was rotated and the site was moved in accordance with the recommendations from the first HDA review. So a little bit to the south and a little bit to the east. There was conversation in advance of this with Arrowwood, given that the most significant concern relating to the HDA was that wildlife corridor to the west. So before Greg went through and did a bunch of work to redesign, we wanted to be really sure that we're approaching it in a way that was going to successfully mitigate that concern. So we had a quick sort of preliminary conversation between the three parties about how to make that work, and a couple of the technical elements of it, where to draw that line, given that the corridors is from a larger perspective a north-south corridor, but if you zoom in closer, the top of the slope does undulate a little bit. And so
Where are you measuring from?
yeah, we drew a line that we thought that was approved as a preliminary recommendation from Aaron, that he thought effectively addressed the concern. And Greg set a setback from the property line that gives that 300-foot recommended minimum width, and even more in some areas. And then at one minor choke point, it reduces to 250, but not in a way that would obstruct that corridor on a whole, based on Aaron's analysis. So that was kind of done in advance, and then Greg jumped in and did that all the rest of the design work to reconfigure that site plan. So that's the overall. Just what I included in this note here, that shifts the building footprint south and a little bit to the east. And Greg also noted that ended up meaning that the overall clearing envelope did shrink a tiny bit as well, just based on some of the factors in the design there. In terms of what the bylaw says about mitigating impacts to the greatest extent possible on core habitat and travel corridors, those SWHAs, and this plan really does seem to effectively meet that description, based on moving it closer to the road, therefore minimizing the impacts on that core habitat and avoiding that primary corridor that was outlined by the HDA. One other thing that I noted, which is it's not regulatory, but this was included in the original memo to the Conservation Commission, is that there's a cellar hole out there that was found in the HDA. There's no regulations in the WDB about cellar holes as they relate to Williston, but I did think it was interesting to note that the revised plan may not eliminate that historic foundation. Just interesting to note. Okay, so other things that were worth highlighting. Here's a quick zoom in on the shift from the original plan to the reconfigured site plan. Note that this diagram on the right is a different scale. It's zoomed in, so it's not that the building grew in size. Building is exactly the same size. The site is a little bit smaller in its clearing, so you can see that it's just moved a little bit closer to the road, and it avoids that. This faint red line here is that line that was set by preliminary conversation with Greg and Aaron at Arrowwood to account for that corridor, and just make sure that it's very clearly observed, and there's no ambiguity in understanding how to meet that concern that was laid out. So this plan did a really nice job of doing that. And that's what I wrote here in the staff plan. The reconfigured site plan significantly addresses the primary concerns of the HDA by explicitly allowing for that 300-foot minimum travel corridor west of the project site and shifting the building envelope south and closer to the road to minimize impacts on the SWHAs as recommended. This was Aaron's text, is that the redesign project is consistent with Fairwood Environmental's primary recommendation, referring to that recommendation for the wildlife corridor for reconfiguration, and better complies with the intent of the habitat and corridor protections in the Williston bylaw. And ultimately that's kind of the crucial aspect of this all is, from what the Conservation Commission advisory is here to do, this board is here to try to make sure the projects conform with the bylaw. And so Aaron's analysis in the revised HDA addendum was that this really did that with that most significant concern. Included the text of those 3 relevant bylaws there. That was in the original report as well. And this plan also does a number of other things that were mentioned in HDA. The exterior lighting concerns were effectively addressed. Mainly just, it was clearly documented. I think, Josh and Greg were already planning to meet that. But that was just documented very clearly in the site plan, how those lights will be shut off and oriented in a way that addresses Arrowwood's concern. The protection of the high quality wetland that was found at the north ends up being increased by this reconfiguration because the distance from the site is increased. So the chance of invasive species incursions is decreased. So that's another byproduct of this change that aligns with the AE recommendations in the first HTA. Perimeter screening was added. There was perimeter screening in the original plan as well, but that moves towards one of those concerns that was addressed, and that minor class 3 wetland that was investigated. That wetland was not found to be significant in any way that would interact with the Williston bylaws, but it's worth noting that this plan does move the clearing envelope away from that wetland, so that's no longer relevant to the project as well. So if you look at the HDA addendum, it's relatively short and concise. I know some of you already read it, but there were just a couple of additional recommendations that Aaron made to further improve the protections. And that was mainly to just tighten up the spacing of the perimeter planting and use a multi-tree depth to make that the sound and the visual barrier improved. So a couple of recommendations related to that, and implementing a formal invasive species management plan with a monitoring requirement.
And native species selection.
And what I'll say about that, Greg had previously shared a narrative memo that CSWD was working on a plan, and Kaylee Barber sent me an email. I haven't had a chance to review it yet, but I will share it with the Conservation Commission. Kaylee shared a kind of draft in progress invasive species management plan that CSWD has been working on. So all of that is in alignment with the goals that Greg and Josh had communicated at the last meeting. And from my perspective in reviewing the reconfigured site plan and reviewing the HDA, it all seems in alignment with what the bylaw is trying to protect, and the way that this reconfigured plan is really thoughtfully designed to address the identified concerns in HDA. The rest of this, just noting several components of the Conservation Commission review that are not applicable to the project. The scenic view shed is no longer, there's no longer any overlap with scenic view shed. And there's no longer any overlap with that wetland that was not relevant anyways, but we just noted that as well. So that made the findings and recommendations relatively straightforward for this. There of course is an impact for any clearing. So it's still, of course, noted that the SWHAs will be negatively impacted by development in this area. But given what all the work that's been put into this by Greg and the CSWD team, I think my interpretation of the bylaw, mitigating to the greatest extent that is practical and possible, I think that bar has been met by these reconfigurations. So with draft recommendations from the first round of WCC recommendations, there were really only two that were still relevant here. And those were the recommendations to mark the visual auditory buffer plantings in accordance with the recommendations of the SWHA impact mitigation measures recommended. So I left that in, given that there had been some secondary or additional recommendations made by Arrowwood in the addendum. And the second one was the recommendation for the invasive species monitoring and management plan, and I left that in as well. I think both of those things can very effectively be, put into place for final plans. I don't think those are recommendations that would in any way prevent a discretionary permit from being approved for this project. But I put them in as still relevant here for you to review.
Because we recommend that demarcation for everybody.
Okay.
Right.
So yeah, let's return to those in a second. I just want to show two other things. So here is just a closer look at the site plan. You've reviewed this already, but here you can see it very closely with the topography. It's been shifted down. The curb cut is still in effectively the same location. The building is closer to the road, and it's reversed, so the front of the building is facing away. And I'll note that this is not a Conservation Commission area, but there's a lot of room here for queuing of vehicles, which is another concern that Greg very effectively addressed from the DRB in this additional plan. So you can see the additional distance here on the right from the high quality wetland that's formed in that old railroad cut. And you can see the red line here demarcating what ended up being a 240-foot buffer from the property line, which is what we elected to use as a way to effectively create that corridor. And the last thing I wanted to...
Wait, what document is that? Because it's October 14th.
This is the civil plan set.
I keep opening like somebody else's.
Oh yeah, there is
like another
applicant.
Yeah. I
So
just
yeah,
was
let's
like,
go
what
down
am I
a little bit
looking
further.
at? But what?
2510.
Yeah, the discretionary permit number is 2510.
All right, so the last thing that I wanted to show real quick was just a quick scan through the HTA addendum submitted by Aaron of Arrowwood. This analysis did not require another site visit, given none of the baseline data changed at all. So Aaron was able to do this just based on looking at the reconfigured site plan that Greg provided that was very detailed, and checking that with the analysis that was created from the first HDA. And a lot of good detail here, but this was the source of that useful graphic that just shows the original clearing proposal, revised clearing proposal, and in gray, this was the concept clearing recommendation. So I just note that even though this revised proposal clearing doesn't exactly conform with the gray was a concept, right? It wasn't meant to say this is the only way to do it. It's just meant to show the concept of moving it to the east and south end.
And without engineering knowledge of the building itself.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so that's all the information. So then it goes back to you to decide if you want to, if you agree with these draft recommendations, if you'd like to change those, wordsmith those, dismiss any of them, or add anything. The floor is yours, and Greg or Josh, if you have anything to add at any point, just jump in.
Yeah, I guess we'll start by just saying appreciate the additional time and effort to reconfigure this site. So clearly a lot of work went into it. I do think we still have some questions and obviously an opportunity to ask those questions. But obviously a lot of work went into this, and I think we need to appreciate the due diligence that CSWD has put forward here. So with that, we'll start. Any questions or comments from the commission right now?
Well, it's good.
Looks good.
I actually have a question about the I guess if the site orientation and the 300-foot buffer has been covered sort of in great detail, and thank you, Dave, and thank you to Arrowwood for the excellent additional work that they put forward as well. I actually had a question about the plantings and lighting. And if you could just, not being totally familiar with all of the details of your operating plan, can you talk about the lighting and how the Arrowwood recommendations for the buffer would sort of help minimize the visibility of the operations for that corridor?
Yeah, I outlined it probably in more detail in kind of my cover letter to the town, but I'll try to kind of do high level. A lot of the lighting on the project, most of it is either built, I guess you can separate it into building mounted, and then there are some lights that are around the traveled ways, parking lots, etc. I think the biggest thing that maybe we didn't do a very good job of explaining on the last go around is just hours of operation at CSWD. This building's only open from 6 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. And so we discussed in that lighting memo to the town that the lighting would probably would be on a timer from an hour before and an hour after those timelines, effectively limiting as much as possible as much light into the woods during the evening. Some of the building mounted lights will still have reduced operation as well as motion detection, just to kind of keep security issues down. But those would only be the downcasted ones that are on the building themselves. All the pole mounted lights that are kind of more on the periphery would be off during those times. And so I think that kind of helped explain how we would limit light flooding into the forest. Does that answer the question? Sorry.
Certainly on the lighting, how many of those how much like peripheral lighting is there, and given those hours, what is the sort of value of that lighting even being installed, I guess?
So, I mean, there's still, I mean, this property is still open during the winter, and as you were all just discussing, light in the winter doesn't get light until like 8 o'clock in the morning. So it's mostly for morning light, safety of people parking and going into the building, safety of the drivers driving around the building and being able to see where they're going, and just it's mostly for like safety and work operation around the building. But it is mostly just for those 3 hours in the morning during the winter time. I don't think there'll be a whole lot of lighting needed during the summer at all. I think 5 o'clock to 4:30 in the afternoon stays pretty light during the summer months.
Yeah, great. And then if you could also talk about the the peripheral plantings, and the recommendation was to have those plantings be more spaced closer together and staggered in sort of radius to the development zone.
Yeah, I think that's just a classic example of I put 1 foot forward and got some feedback from Arrowwood, and I think the project's happy to abide by that. Right now, the spacing is they were just arborvitae spaced at about 15 feet, completely surrounding the site. I left a little room between all the grading, not very much to kind of limit additional clearing. But there's probably about a 5 foot space, but I think we could offset that at a 10 foot spacing and use those 3 diverse plants kind of in combination instead of having it just be 1 row of plants 15 feet. So I just got additional feedback. We're happy to abide by that feedback.
Great. Any other questions?
That was my only question is, yeah, just the practicality of that particular recommendation, because, you know, a multi-layer planting sounds like it would be excellent, but then there's the question of, can you accommodate that without having to make additional clearing? Because of course, additional clearing is, you know,
Also
probably
a trade-off.
right,
Yep.
exactly, trade-off. So noting that in some cases there isn't a lot of space between the grading and the planting. Does it seem, Greg, that there's room to accommodate, you know, another row of planting as recommended in most of it?
I believe there is. I know you are kind of zoomed in or zoomed out on this project, and it looks like there's an excessive amount of grading and steep slopes, but I tried to maintain as much as possible, like a 4-on-1 slope on some of those side slopes to not be
Okay.
so aggressive. And those side slopes can easily maintain having a plant on them.
Okay.
So I think there's opportunity to kind of put some even on the slope a little bit and still make everything work.
Great. Okay.
Yeah, and that is at the bottom of the hill. So we're talking about plantings that would be going up the hill. There's an excessive amount of topo lines on that, but
Yeah.
when you look at the number, it's actually high ground going down to low ground, and
From
so
here,
yeah, and so it's not like a cliff or anything that it's
Falling off of it.
falling off of, exactly.
Right.
So like,
And it would
makes
be
sense.
other arborvitae like you have in the memo to the DRB.
I think Greg was saying that the three species that were recommended by Arrowwood,
Okay,
Yeah,
interspersed
Yeah,
staggered.
I would replace the arborvitae with the 3 species and kind of use them in tandem.
intermix,
shagbark hickory.
no.
I think that, yeah, it was all conifer species, so
Yeah.
that covers
Evergreen.
present in the winter.
Yep.
I think it was arborvitae is the same plant as white cedar, eastern white cedar. So cedar, hemlock, and red spruce, I think, were the 3. So obviously not all the arborvitae would need to change. But the idea is that if you have more species, you're less susceptible to, you know, if one gets browsed out by deer or, you know, an insect pest or something, or more species means more likelihood that the buffer will be successful in
More
actually
robust.
actually achieving the
And
minimum.
also some ecological services too for species in the forest.
Yeah, I think with regards to that,
Not significant.
yeah,
Birds
not
maybe a little
significant in
bit, but-
comparison to
Yeah.
the surrounding forest, but it's a good point. Yes.
So I think the only thing left then would be discussion of the invasive plan and hearing what they thought about that recommendation from Arrowwood and what the preliminary thinking of what that plan would be looks like.
do we feel like we should see the plan or the draft that, sorry, Kylie sent to Dave before we discuss it? Did I get all of those answers? If who did it? Because we don't, that's not in the packet, right?
No, that was just shared with me today. I can, I haven't had a chance. to review, and again, it is a draft, a work in progress, but I give you a quick look at just the level of detail that's contained. So the number of components relating to strategies, best management practices.
Hey, Dave, can I just jump in real
Sure.
quick too?
Yeah, go ahead.
Um,
Absolutely.
we talked about this a little bit the last time we all met with you. The fact that we are currently doing some of this invasive species monitoring and addressing of some of them on Redmond Road because of our compost facility and our need to protect that product. So we are currently doing some mitigation efforts, especially around Japanese knotweed on our property. But there are some significant issues that we face with invasives on the road already in potentially getting into our compost product. So this is sort of like a formalization of the process that we're already doing on that site. And this is a draft because we envision needing to pull in other partners in mitigating some of these issues on Redmond Road, most notably Global Foundries, the town, Velco. There's a couple different partners that we're going to have to engage in. So this is certainly a draft, and likely it gets expanded a little bit more as we try to start pulling in some of those other partners. But if there was any concern that this was sort of like lip service to check a box off for one of those for one of the recommendations, I just wanted to acknowledge the seriousness that we take this issue along Redmond Road, most notably because of our compost facility. So I just wanted to offer that out, not to say you shouldn't review or look, but just to sort of convey the seriousness that we take this issue.
Thanks for that comment, Josh. I appreciate it. And it actually gets to sort of my question, which is, I don't know if invasive management has like an ISO certification for, incorporating into your total quality management plan of the site. But like, what does that management plan sort of look and feel like at the site to implement a very robust plan, which I'm sure is checks all the boxes for sure, but how do you actually end up implementing it?
Well, right now our director of organics, he's working with, well, we're doing some chemical treatment, especially of the knotweed. So we work with an outside contractor to come in and cut that back and actually spray it. But it's we're doing physical removal of invasives as far up as sort of like, we're looking at it as far up as the Velco substation, but certainly we're physically removing a lot of poison parsnip as close to the property as possible. So it's not a formal process right now. This is kind of the nudge towards that formal process, but it's we kind of toe the line a little bit because we do accept a lot of those materials at our facility for processing into our compost, but the way we have to process those materials is laid out in our facility management plan. So we have a certain amount of time that we want to get those covered by other compost products or incorporated into our mix so they start to break down right away. So again, this is sort of like the formalization of the whole CSWD property as far as it goes down to our Williston drop-off center, this new site, the compost facility. Whereas before it was sort of contained to our compost facility, and it's in our facility management plan for that facility. This sort of like broadens it out to all of our properties on the road.
My sense is that like this is going to be way more robust than other like applications that we are or invasive management plans that we would see because it's like a threat to their product.
Can I also add one other thing? We also changed some aspects of erosion prevention and sediment control to try to limit the spread of invasives in that process. So we're hoping we're not allowing hay to be used for erosion prevention and sediment control. And we're hoping actually that the majority of the disturbed area, because there obviously isn't a lot because we limited it as much as possible, will actually just be hydroseeded to kind of limit that even further. Straw will be allowed, but that tends to have less invasives than the hay does. So we did make that adjustment in all of our plans to not allow that.
Yeah, interesting.
So how much, as like a percentage of your time or whatever, just so I can get a sense of it, like, is there a number of days per year, or is it like a percentage of or hourly per month that you're going to actually spend focusing on, like the director, overseeing the site, how much of that time will he or she be focused on invasive management? Is it part of their job description, or is it something that they are just sort of, how's that formalized?
Well, it's certainly formalized in his job description in that he produces a premium product that we sell, sort of across the state. And we've had historical issues, not with invasive species, but with persistent herbicides in being in our product. And we've sort of had experience with what that looks like when we spread a product throughout the state that that doesn't perform as our customers would like. So just from a pure product standpoint, it's in his job description to make that product perform as well as we can, and that certainly includes keeping invasive species out of the compost mix that doesn't break down at the temperature that we cook our compost at. So all of his work goes into making that product, but certainly a subset of that is identifying what the feedstocks are for that compost and making sure that it's clean enough that when it does break down in the composting product process, that it performs like it should at the end. So from his perspective, that's the justification for the time that he spends. I don't know that I'd put an hour sort of on, or a percentage on what his job looks like for doing that, except that it certainly comes in waves in the springtime as sort of they're popping up, and we can identify those areas that need to be addressed. And then with a knotweed, sort of keeping track of where we've had it and making sure we're doing that chemical application as necessary. Kaylee Barber's on the call. She's our construction project manager, which is a new position for us in the last couple of years. Given that she's going to be on site at the hopefully at the new MRF project, I envision a lot of the responsibility for carrying out this management plan in the first year to fall to her. She'll be certainly overseeing the MRF construction project, but we have REARC to do that as well. So she will have some time to sort of make sure that all these sort of plans that are ancillary to the actual construction of the building itself are being followed through on. So certainly for the first year, as we are formalizing and making those partnerships with other groups on the road, I see a lot of that work going to her, and I suspect it'll be a pretty heavy lift until we sort of iron out all of the issues that we haven't foreseen, because this is the first time we've formalized this process. But obviously we're taking it seriously and it's important to us. So I think a lot of that will fall to Kaylee in that first year for sure.
Thanks, Josh.
I have to run, but I just want to note that I do think like there's a difference, right? There's like when construction is active and like there's like disturbance happening, and that is, as you're noting, Josh, like that will probably be a huge lift. And then there's like ongoing. And I don't know if those things are separated out in the draft plan, but if it feels like it would be good to have them identified separately as like what is what's the construction phase and then what's the ongoing phase. And maybe it's in there. We haven't seen it, but.
So, yeah, I guess I'll jump in real quick, because noting we got about 5 more minutes for this. Thank you for all the comments and responses, Greg and Josh as well. Yeah, I think from what I was queuing in on in the HDA addendum, I think that the word that was highlighted, I thought the most by Aaron, was monitoring. And so just, I think from what I'm hearing here, I think what might be helpful to just think about in terms of like how the draft evolves for final plans is just knowing that, there is, someone specific is responsible for the oversight. That there is a plan to monitor regularly, whether that's 2 times a year in the spring and fall or whatever.
Through the construction phases.
Yeah, as well as through the construction phase.
Yeah, when there's disturbance happening, that's when it's like the most likely to.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think in terms of the HDA, the reason this was called out was that the forest surrounding the site is unfortunately for Williston, relatively uncommon in that it didn't have a lot of invasive species. Many of our forests are not in as good shape.
Yeah.
So that was the surprise of that HDA. So I think in terms of management plan, I think hopefully, from what it sounds like this site is, you'll have the luxury of being in a position of early detection, rapid response kind of situation where it's the goal is really to prevent something from taking hold and starting to run away.
Mm-hmm.
So I think from my perspective, that idea of like monitoring regularly, and when you find something, take it out, that seems to be like the crux in terms of this particular site. That will probably be a little different from your management at the other site where knotweed might be established already in the periphery and you're trying to keep it out of the product. On this site, I think that the main concern will be preventing something from kind of taking hold and just checking in regularly. But it sounds like you're on your way for that. So
yeah, because our concern would be then if the invasives spread into that wildlife habitat corridor and sort of make it less viable and less attractive of a spot, which is sort of in the opposite direction of their concern of how invasives would spread up the road. Our concerns would be invasive spreading in the back of the facility, where all of those trucks are idle and where the wildlife corridor is, basically. I wonder if the density of that planting along the periphery would actually help in some regards. It would, capture airborne seeds or just, create a shade zone, stop runoff. Any thoughts on that? Like, as the value of that denser planting?
My thought is that that'll just be kind of really the main area to monitor will be along the peripheries, particularly on the east side and the north side, where you got the wildlife corridor on the west side, wildlife corridor on the west, and the wetland is beyond. It's not immediately adjacent or anything, but those are the main areas where the vectors would be, and any hedge line or edge line, you're going to get birds landing and dropping seeds for invasive species and stuff. So I think that'll just be, areas to be paying attention to and monitoring. But the other thing I just wanted to say real quick on this is, Josh, the town would be happy to be a partner on this. And, in terms of CSWD's larger work on invasive species, this isn't a issue that any one organization can tackle. And I think you make a great point that it's, we need improved cooperation between all the different institutions, and town's no exception on that. So I'd be happy to collaborate and help out or talk, on a larger scale, independent of this particular review, about invasives work in Williston.
Yeah, I know there's some other examples out there of sort of like a town like organization or group or some sort of like spearhead, and
Mhm.
you know, I think South Burlington may do something similar to that. But yeah, it is sort of more it's certainly bigger than us because we don't own every acre along Redmond Road. So
Right.
we need some sort of buy-in from other groups. And so you know, trying to figure that out. You know, we would certainly appreciate some help, especially from the town, to sort of help coordinate or organize or something, just so that we're not trying to, you know, because right now you know, I look at, you know, sort of where um some of the where we're seeing it encroaching, and a lot of it is in the Velco owned areas. And certainly we have you know, quite a bit in the former parcel that we were trying to build on. And so we want to play a part, but know that, you know,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Totally.
a team.
if it's not being managed outside of our properties,
Yeah.
all we're doing is sort of like holding it back from coming onto our property. So
Yeah, understood. Yeah, so just to kind of summarize on this right here, so our task in right now is just to finalize these draft recommendations. This is some excellent dialogue, and I think there's the larger question of just cooperation with the town and CSWD working on this bigger picture issue. And then there's the smaller question of just what is the specific question, which is the way that this specific site relates to the invasive species question. And that's really more about kind of monitoring, early detection, making sure that you know, new invasive material doesn't get introduced to the best extent possible during the construction project or process, and if it is, that it's identified quickly and taken out. So that's just the things to kind of think about in finalizing that plan, which can certainly be doesn't have to happen by this October 14th DRB. Okay, so I'll turn it back to the WCC. Would you like to propose any changes to these draft recommendations? Is there anything missing?
My only question on the recommendations, which I think sort of reflect the Arrowwood and your memo very well, is the final plans look, it sounds like CSWD is amenable to them. Will we actually get a chance to see what those final plans are? Like, you know, at this point, the project gets moved on and we rarely sort of see it again.
I think the DRB would be the ones to
right,
to look at them.
so yeah, is when would the final plans be developed, I guess?
As soon as possible would be
For
my guess
the 18th?
for Greg and Josh. I would have to take a closer look in as to what would be a realistic date. It's all, you know, depend on the DRP meeting, which I expect will go well, but yeah, I don't want to get too ahead of myself or anything.
Yeah,
But to your point, right, it wouldn't, there's not necessarily a step where things come back to the Conservation Commission before final plans, but I think, you know, I think it's reasonable that we can keep the communication channel going, and I think, you know, there's the formal recommendation here is meet the recommendations. Greg and Josh have indicated that should be possible. And so I think it's reasonable that, you know, we can keep that channel open.
The only thing that I would add, especially on clearly the plantings are super important for maintaining the viability of that buffer, but so is the invasive management plan. And the invasive management plan is more likely than not going to be oriented towards the compost product, which is understandable. I would just like there to be recognition in that final plan that the focus here is on maintaining the viability of that forest for its unique characteristics of not being invasive. So I understand, like, I think they're on that path, but I think it's worth calling out that you know, that includes wildlife.
The north and the west.
Yeah.
The north and the west, right?
Yeah, that's a good point, and I think that really, right, the what is at issue here is not, there's no, the town has no regulatory power to weigh in on CSWD's overall institutional invasive species management work.
Right.
We can be a partner to that, but what's at issue here is the invasive species monitoring and management plan that is referenced here should be specific to this site.
Yeah.
Right, and that's what you're getting at. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's helpful. I agree to call out, and we can take a look at that draft.
But as far as the recommendation, you're satisfied that number 2 there gets that message across? Because from staff perspective.
I'm satisfied.
Because it
Yes.
references the Arrowwood HDA, so like that's why I think it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We just kind of need to see, we just need to, your assurance, because you'll be the staff who
Yes.
really gets it,
Yeah.
to identify that, yes, the invasive management plan does address, this site in particular and the concerns that Arrowwood identified.
I'd like to move approval of the draft recommendations as listed here.
Thank you, Reed.
I'll second.
Thank you, Laura. All in favor of approving the recommendations as written? Aye.
Aye.
I
Thank you, Eric.
All right.
Approved. Thank you, the CSWD, for the excellent rework,
and the conversation.
and the conversation, yeah.
Let's keep it going on the invasive stuff.
Yeah. We've got to move on. We're over for our next topic, but
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much, Greg. Thank you, Josh.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks,
Appreciate it.
Josh.
Good luck.
Alicia, welcome.
Thank you. Hi, nice to
She's
see
been
you.
here for a while.
It's
Yes.
I enjoy hearing you all working. It's impressive. It's really you have a great way of working things through that's fun to witness. So yeah, hello. I think we talked in the spring about a Vermont Master Naturalist program that is currently running. We did get that launched on Sunday a week ago, and there are 18 people enrolled, and 5 or more are from Williston. So that one's underway. But the idea was to circle back with a little more lead time for seeking funding. And so we're proposing now another program that would include Williston that we would launch in the fall of 2026. So I don't know how much I realize you've been already listened to a number of things this morning, and I don't know how much you want me to go back through what the program does, or whether we would just talk about this second program, which would include Williston, South Burlington, and Burlington. We're calling it the Lower Winooski River Program, and sort of where we're at with that design. We do have a coordinator. One of the reasons I came to talk to you about Vermont Master Naturalist kind of late in the game this past time was that one of our key elements is a really good program coordinator, and Laura Meyer has played that role, and she does it excellently. And we were looking for someone to do the program, and we did find it, but it was a little later in the game than would have been ideal from a funding perspective. So can I just get a sense of where to start with recapping what Vermont Master Naturalist does?
Well, I think we love this stuff, so we can hear it all day, but I think we are familiar with it. So.
Perfect.
And support it.
Thank you. One thing I did want to share with you is sort of an exciting development with Dave Maroney in this position as conservation planner. We've had really good support around brainstorming projects, which is another key piece of the whole experience. They have the professional training, and then they work on a project that can lead to them having future engagement in the town in conservation efforts. So if I could just quickly tell you some of the ideas that were floating for the current program, but they'd be the kind of thing we do in the Lower Winooski River program. But Dave has proposed invasive species work, maybe helping map invasive species and landscaping around the town that could be traded out for native plants. Wildlife survey work with cameras in key areas. Additional pollinator gardens, they're proposing sites and designs for that. Capturing the big trees in the city, just help people celebrate. Just have a registry of the champion trees in Williston. And things related to herps. You know, there's not great documentation of where they are living and breeding, and even their exact location and presence on the landscape. So I'll just toss those out there to give you a sense that what might be a return for your investment in terms of what people do in the town. And sometimes, you know, they go on to stay engaged. Certainly, examples in your room right now are Laura Meyer and Dave Maroney. So
And Lynn.
and Lynn. Hello, Lynn. I have a tiny view of who all's in the room, but good to see you. So maybe I don't know what else I can say except that
You've got a question.
Sure.
Oh, I was just gonna throw out another idea as you're thinking about the current program, but also an upcoming one next year, and that is one area we haven't quite made progress on, but it's been on our list for a while, is public outreach around human wildlife conflict. And
Okay.
it takes that's kind of we've talked with CVU classes about, you know, students working on that, but it really takes a nuanced approach to figure out what will connect with Williston residents. But we've had beaver issues. We have you know, different sightings of, you know, coyote and bear and stuff that get people excited, nervous, all sorts of different reactions. And I think just generally it's been on our list to have some sort of public outreach program that helps develop a positive relationship with kind of our wildlife neighbors.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that suggestion. We can certainly put that on the ballot. And the way we've always approached the projects is to try to get an affinity team, you know, people with the right skills and the interest to coalesce around the different projects. So we can certainly float this idea this year and again next year and see if we've got the right people at the right time, you know, to do that, because that does sound like it. It also it dovetails with another project Dave suggested, which was creating an actual bear map from the sightings from iNaturalist.
Yeah.
People. So
yeah, we have the depth of the Vermont Master Naturalist exploration of like the local landscape and stuff would lend itself to doing a good job at the public outreach piece.
Thank you so much. Okay, well, I have that now. I'll push that to the top of the list to be on the ballot, and we'll see what people gravitate toward. It's interesting that, you know, each year there are key areas that are attractive to people, and sometimes it's pollinator work, sometimes it's wildlife work. We don't always know in advance, you know, who our team is, what our team's composed of in terms of interests, but I certainly will put that forward as a choice.
Go ahead, Eric.
Thanks, Alicia. Great to see you again. I've just been scouring my brain and memory for ideas that we pitched in the past. And I think you mentioned at the outset, or maybe it was one of Dave's ideas, invasive species mapping. I think that would be fantastic if we could get something like that going. And also management coordination. I don't know if that's within the scope of the Vermont Master Naturalist program, but knowing where having a good idea of where the invasive species are in the I almost said the basin, sorry, in the town, and developing an approach to managing them would be really helpful for us. And I don't know if you were on the call earlier, but Reed mentioned there's a new spot of Japanese knotweed along the Allen Brook near the school. That would be, you know, so you know, things like, I don't even know where that came. That's what I was going to ask earlier, Reed, is where did that come from? Where is the nearest location that it would have come from?
My guess would be the washing of vehicles that have been on sites around the area. Just my guess, given that it's behind the fire station. So.
Huh.
In general, upland, Japanese knotweed primarily produces vegetatively, so you have to have some kind of root material
Right.
or crown material that's moved, and it's most often in gravel and fill. So you'll see new plants pop up at construction sites very frequently. It's brought in with fill. When telephone poles are replaced, it's very common to have a
Well, they just
leaf
did,
pop up.
they just did the whole basin dredging and stormwater digging
Yeah.
season, so it
Okay.
probably came.
Right, roadsides, so there, it could have been some grading that was done, it could have been dredging, yeah, something like that, dumped extra fill. That's usually the way that it travels.
They were working all spring on that project, so it's probably what it is. Anyway,
Yeah, that makes sense. Other ideas I had were, and again, I don't know if this is within the scope of Vermont Master Naturalist, but developing a land conservation outreach and marketing. I don't know what plan tool, something like that's another one that we've been batting around here in the Conservation Commission for a while. We were fortunate to get to have support from the town in this year's budget through a special ballot item on town meeting day to allocate extra funding for land conservation for our environmental reserve fund.
Really, the restore funding.
Yeah, good point. Restore funding.
Yeah.
But marketing that program, I think, to people in the town would be great. And then this is not helpful for you, Alicia, but for the other conservation commission members, are there other things in the new town plan that we added this year that might be worth taking a deeper look at? And obviously, we don't have time to get into that today. And then lastly, put my day job hat on for the Lake Champlain Basin program. Alicia, as you know, we have grant programs that we open up, that a few that are open right now, and our education and outreach grant programs. Those opportunities will be available at the end of October, I think. I'm pretty sure we've awarded a grant to you for Master Naturalist program in the past, so there could be an opportunity for you there to explore as well. All right, taking that off, putting my Conservation Commission hat back on, and I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. I'll just say, since we're popping ideas for Alicia, I'll just say, when my kids and I go for hikes, my background is more geology and geomorphology, is like what the landscape used to look like, and it's more understanding, more of those types of projects of saying, like, this is what this landscape looked like, during the glacial period, and what the old, ancient Lake Champlain looked like, and how big it was, and how deep underwater this part of Williston was versus, like, was Five Tree Hill popping up out of that lake. That ancient geologic history, I think, is really interesting, and it's a, I know we focus a lot on, like, what's living in this.
Oh, right.
But for
a snapshot in time.
Yeah, it is. It's just a snapshot in time, and I love the storytelling of geologic history, and I think this region is super interesting because it's like one of the oldest mountain ranges on the planet, and we're living, millions and millions and millions of years after it's sort of eroded. And the story of that is super interesting, especially to kids, because it's crazy when we hike Mansfield or Camel's Hump, it's like, those were like the Himalayas of, primordial Earth. So I would love to hear more storytelling around that personally.
Excellent. Well, I have a recommendation for you. Laura, have you talked about the talk you just gave?
No, we haven't talked to the Rotary about that.
Oh yeah?
About
Cool.
Since the glaciers, and it was the same one I gave in Wild Hills.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I can send you the.
Cool.
But I 100% agree with that, and I'm feeling like we should have you come in and teach with us, because those bedrock to bird stories, like really what happened in deep time and how we see it today, is what excites us, and so be interesting to talk to you more about with kids how we could make that more available. Maybe some public walks or talks that are geared toward families, about the topic that Laura covered, just exactly what you're saying. You are in Williston, right where we were both on the edge of Lake Vermont and the Champlain Sea. So there's some really interesting stories archaeologically and also in terms of superficial geology, and as you were talking about, the geology itself. So these are all great ideas. What I'll do is I'll try to hone a few of them up. We have a deadline in a couple of weeks for this group that's running that includes Williston residents, but we'll have plenty of time to think about projects for the group that would be launched in the fall of 2026, which is the one we're seeking funding for today. So there'll be lots of chance to have these discussions about how to leverage and harness the energy of Vermont Master Naturalists to help with conservation in Williston.
So on the funding request,
Yes.
That's how.
we gotta address that. So this is probably beyond what our ability to just approve would be.
Mhm.
And so we would very likely have to include it in that memo that I talked about with you
Yes.
last week about the budget recommendation that goes into Eric.
Yes, and that's definitely gonna be a big topic for next time. We obviously need, that needs to be prioritized right now.
Yeah.
So so you don't necessarily have to make a motion right now, related to this, that, you know, that can be part of the larger budget conversation. But you're absolutely right, this would need to be, the funding would need to be requested and approved for fiscal year 27.
And this would be operating budget, a line item, not a capital item.
Yes, this would be operating
Also
budget.
not able to be covered by the ERF collection.
Yeah.
And so where, as a new person on the committee,
Mhm.
where would that come from? Like what?
Yeah, so when we
what's the
submit,
operating budget or?
it would come out of planning and zoning, is where the like trails and other
Yeah.
conservation, purchases or sponsorships.
Yeah.
Come out of,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, my understanding is, I think conservation used to sort of be bumped out as its own thing, but at some point it was just included with planning and zoning, so. The budget line items for trail maintenance, for studies.
Invasive management.
Consultants, invasive management all comes from line items in the operating budget of planning and zoning.
And we send a budget request memo with what we think we need for next year to town manager's office, and that gets included in the budget proposal that's put before the select board.
It is generally only for the ERF. This commission doesn't make the recommendation for the operating budget of the planning.
I thought well, maybe the staff.
Staff,
The planning and zoning.
Yeah, staff formally submits
good
that,
point.
but that's not to say the Conservation Commission doesn't have the power to recommend that funding is included for a specific.
Right.
Conservation purpose. You're not reviewing the complete line item budget and saying, we think it should be this number.
Yep.
But you absolutely have the power to say, this is our opinion and recommendation. This is the request for this purpose.
Yeah. Would the planning department consider adding, and I'm adding these numbers up, and so roughly the full ask for our town would be a little over, like $7,600, give or take, right?
For this program, this is
41.
for a single program, right? So 3,500 is the request to essentially develop this program. Noting that the total cost is 10,500, but that's shared between 3 towns, from which applicants are going to be drawn: Williston, South Burlington, Burlington. And then the additional, the second number here is
adding in a scholarship.
Yeah, exactly. If the town has more more capability to support, VMN has a tradition of never refusing admission, providing need-blind admission for applicants. And so there are always applicants that have part of their tuition funded.
I was not clear that those two numbers shouldn't be added together.
Right.
Correct, yeah.
One
So
or the other.
it's, exactly, one or the other.
Okay.
And do we have guidelines from a town when we're donating to a nonprofit organization, and if we're gonna go for 41.95, would the the scholarship need to go to a Williston resident? Are there any guidelines like that that we would have to follow?
VMN is not a nonprofit.
It's a
It's a
for-profit.
business.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna make that point.
Or,
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah, it's okay.
the .org website just made me
Oh, yeah.
assume that, I apologize, or, I mean, I guess that's just
I
a
understand.
general question, like.
Would it have to be a Williston
Yeah.
resident?
Yeah.
Sort of. Yeah, how does that work usually, Alicia? Do you typically, if a town provides us a sponsorship, admission sponsorship amount, is it only used for applicants from that town?
Some towns have asked that, yes, and we can honor that. Some towns, it's just a donation to the whole program that includes that town. But we often do get requests, and we can make sure to make good use of that, and we can direct it toward a Williston resident.
So I think my question is for Dave, which is that would it be possible for you to ask Matt if this fits in the planning budget, or if it would be more helpful for that, would you like the commission to vote and to, recommend that it be included in the planning budget? If not, we can include it in our along with our ERF recommendation to Eric in the fall.
So I've spoken with Matt, we both agree that there are a lot of positive reasons to support the program and directly creating this, if you're trying to understand, okay, why would you spend this money? The return on investment in creating this pipeline of people that get involved with town conservation work, with volunteering, that join boards and commissions, is a very strong argument. So from that sort of objective perspective, we both agree that it is certainly a reasonable and defensible request to include that request in the budget. And then that would of course go to select board. But to your second part of your question, I do think that it needs to have the support of the Conservation Commission.
Okay.
From my perspective, oh, sorry, go ahead, Lon.
I just wanted to mention one thing that you might not know is that anytime someone requests tuition help for the Vermont Master Naturalist Program, the Vermont Master Naturalist Program gets support from VSAC. And so the first thing they do is ask VSAC for help.
For financial assistance, that's interesting to know.
And they have gotten it as long as it's for their professional advancement. It's not for a retired person taking it for fun.
Yeah, and thank you, Laura. And the other exception is if it's a recently graduated student, they need to have been out of school, for years. So for us to be able to draw from the younger end of the population spectrum has been really, it enriches our program. So, and also if they have to be a citizen. So for us to have our separate scholarship fund allows for a little more breadth of applying it to people who want to be in the program beyond VSAC's requirements. Yeah.
I just had one more thing to say, and that I do really like a lot of the projects that have been brought up that you can kind of draw a box around versus putting in a pollinator garden or planting trees, which is really an endless project. I mean, that requires maintenance, which, some people may continue to do it or may not, and then that can actually, kind of make an area like not look great. But also I wanted to connect this to just the volunteering guidelines in the town that are pretty stringent right now, so we should I think that's something that we need to work through, but that we should be aware of when projects are determined for Williston.
Does VMN carry insurance for project work
We do.
Yeah, I think that's a key element for us is right now it's not really a problem with organizations that carry their own insurance. It's when the town insurance is.
Yeah.
Would be needed.
Well, I'll also just say that in terms of volunteering, there's, you know, the activity that is the center of the volunteering is really what has determined the discussion around risk management and what is challenging or not challenging for the town to approve. And most projects proposed for VMN related to, surveying for wildlife or, creating interpretive information or mapping, species or trees, whatever, at the most would simply require a simple waiver. So.
Yeah, I think those are great projects.
Yeah.
Those seem like, the
Yeah.
sweet spot versus invasive removal. Isn't that like
The
a
challenge-
waiver every time? we're
The
pulling
challenge
cars?
becomes like somebody from Williston attends the program, they work on mapping, then they want to work on so we have to work through the volunteering situation in general, because after the program, that's where actually a lot of the value comes to the town is in continued engagement in boards, commissions, volunteer work.
So we're at time.
So I just want to say, I would like to just voice my support for the full 4195. I think that it also addresses the town's focus with the most recent town plan on improving equity in the town, and it creates an opportunity for people who might not be able to afford the cost of the program to participate, but I would want it to be limited to a Williston resident.
So thank you, Reed. Hearing that support and hearing what Dave needs in order to make a formal recommendation in the planning budget for these funds, I think it would be helpful if we had a motion that carries that with the full support of the commission for that notion. So do you want to advance a motion for that?
Yeah, I can move that the Conservation Commission support a recommendation of funding of the 2026 lower Winooski Master Naturalist Program at the full value of $4,195, which includes a scholarship for a Williston resident.
Thank you, Reed. Very comprehensive motion. Laura, do you want to second that one?
Can't.
Oh, you can't. You're recused. Is that why?
I will second that very comprehensive motion. Thank you for the clarity on that,
very
Reed.
much. Perfect. Can we then have a vote? And are you abstaining?
I am abstaining.
Okay, great. So we'll just vote all in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries, one abstention, Laura abstains, and Kim is gone, but we still have a 4-person quorum. Is that good?
That is good. Thank
Okay.
you all so much. Alicia, thank you for joining us. Everyone, thank you for.
Thank you, Alicia. Great.
Packed
Thank you.
meeting.
I'm
Thank you for your
really
attention
excited to
and
be working
focus.
with you. You're really a dream town for me to work with.
Oh,
So thank you for all your support, and we're happy to be coming back. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alicia.
Bye.
Yeah, full agenda, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
All right. I will not be able to join you next time. I have to head to Massachusetts again, which looks like it's not going to be an every other month kind of thing. So apologies for that, but I will not be here next time. I'll see you in November.
Thanks, Eric.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you. Bye.
Aye.